This July, Family Fest Barbados invites you to be part of something powerful. It is our month of activities in July 2026 under the theme This July, the Purpose Family Fest Barbados. Across 4 dynamic weeks, we will focus on the heart of our nation: men, women, children, and the family.
Join us for 12 live online discussions, exploring real issues, real stories, and real solutions for stronger families and a stronger Barbados. Men's Week runs July 5th to 9th.
Women's Week runs July 12th to 16th. Children's Week runs July 19th to 23rd. And Family Week runs July 26th to 30th. Stream with us live on Sundays at 5:30 p.m. and Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Then, join us for our 7th anniversary fundraising gala, Saturday, September 5th, 2026 at 7 p.m. at the Hilton Barbados Resort.
Enjoy a 3-course meal, entertainment, door prizes, and more. Tickets are $250 per person. Your support helps us to save families. Family Fest Barbados. Help, hope, healing, happiness.
For tickets and information, call 428-9611, 420-5717, or 832-5241. Saving families through education.
We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness. With God on our side, we're marching strong, looking out for hurting children all around, and helping the parents carry on. Standing united, we'll overcome. We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness.
Good evening and welcome to Family Fest 2026 month of activities. I am Angelina Cotton, your moderator for this evening. And this is Family Week, where we'll be focused on yet another topic on the family. If you've missed our conversation that started on Sunday on why society rises and falls on the family, head over to our Family Fest YouTube and Facebook pages to catch up with that discussion. Tonight, we continue our conversation on the family with the aim of answering the question: is the family the ultimate fix for social dysfunction? We'll critically examine the role of family in shaping human development, well being, and behavior by exploring how different family structures and relationships influence individual outcomes. So the discussion seeks to deepen understanding of how supportive, strained, or absent family environments affect personal growth and societal well-being, and to consider whether strengthening family relationships can contribute to improved human and social outcomes. And to help us with this discourse, we have a panel of strong men suitable to take us through. We want to welcome Jakeem, Ronald, and Delson. Kindly give us a short summary of yourselves. We'll begin with Ronald, followed by Jackie, and then Delson. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Good night to all. Good night to all the listeners, all the persons online. My name is Ronald Pope. I am a school counselor working with the students in secondary schools across Barbados. Um, Privately, I am a psychologist working with different organizations helping our youth. And that is the main thing that I guess my calling, God gave me. My calling is to help the youth. While I was studying doing a master's in psychology, I did attachment in the prison. While I was there, I recognized that if you're going to help these guys, you have to intervene early. And when I mean early, I mean really early. And for me, working with young people, working with families, I get to help persons turn around their lives. And for me, it brings great satisfaction knowing that you can make the intervention and help shape our society for the better. So that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
That's good. Jackie? Uh, we're not hearing you. Okay, we'll let Delson, you can go ahead
Right, no
whilst
problem.
he gets the mic together. Yes,
Very
go
good
ahead.
evening, everyone. So my name is Alison Charles. I am a behavioral therapist. I also work as a marriage and family life therapist. I have been working with couples and families and individuals, in Barbados and across the region for quite some time now. I'm attached to the Seventh Adventist Church. So for the last, I would say 6 years or so, I've been doing work on a conference level, just going to different countries through the conference and assisting families and individuals there. Particularly, I do work with men. So if I were to identify a niche, I would say that my niche is working with men and young men in particular, helping them navigate the experiences of masculinity and manhood and looking at how you balance that with the social pressures that we have there. But I do have a special place in my heart and my experience for families. I believe that family is the foundation of life. And so I would put things aside, right now, for example, I am navigating a major career shift. So I recently moved from Barbados and I'm over here in Grenada now. But still, I had to carve time out to prioritize this discussion, and because that's how much I love families and I love what we are doing here at Family Fest. And so I'm excited to engage and share with my fellow panelists tonight.
Lovely. Jackie, do we? Okay. All right. We will when Jackie comes back, we will let him introduce himself. Uh, and yes, so as we're on the topic of the root cause, is the family the ultimate fix for social dysfunction? But before we get to the question, let's establish what the problem or what we've been seeing in society. So, in contemporary society, signs of social dysfunction and moral, emotional, and behavioral regression are often observed across generations. And this raises important questions about the underlying cause of these patterns. Why do certain forms of dysfunction persist or even intensify over time? And what roles does the family structure play in shaping individual behavior and, by extension, society at large? So, as we examine the family as a foundational social unit, we can explore whether and how it influences human development rather, values, and life outcomes. By analyzing the impact of the family system across generations, we aim to determine whether strengthening the family could be a meaningful pathway toward addressing recurring social challenges and reducing persistent societal vices. So, we would like to start by setting the context of this conversation by understanding the two main concepts, and we will start with family. So, when we speak of the family, What are we referring to in this context, and how has it evolved over time? We can start, anyone. With Delson, since you're on camera
Yes,
there, you
right. I
can
don't
go
mind, yeah, I
ahead.
don't mind going first. That's fine. I don't mind going first. But so when I think about family, I think about the collective. It's a collective, it's a group. And typically this would refer to a collective or a group of persons that are united by blood or some form of blood relation. And this group or this collective would be responsible not just for nurturing and rearing, but it would be responsible also for socialization, for identity, for economic safety, psychological safety, for social and emotional development. And this is the primary, or when we look at the primary function, the primary format of the family, you think about this collective, blood related, responsible for socialization, social, emotional, all your holistic development as an individual. However, it's fair to see that as time has gone by, as society has evolved, and I would even say as psychology has evolved, we've come to accept now that family, when you use the term family, you have to be specific also about whether you are referring to your I want to call it your default family, the ones that you were born into, or this would be a chosen family, because now you come to understand in some discourses and in some circles, there are persons who would refer to friends, to very significant others that they would have picked up along the way, persons with whom they share very intimate bonds, not necessarily sexual or really or romantic, but it's a very strong platonic bond where there are similarities, there is empathy, there's compassion, there is a sense of identity there as well. And so you have many persons now expanding the conversation to speak about chosen family. So, right now, I think we're talking about, we can speak about biological family, and we can also speak about chosen family. So we'll delve some more into that as we move forward.
All right. Ronald, would you have anything to add to that?
I think he he covered a lot. I think at its most basic, as you said before, the family consists of an adult, if his or her or spring. Most commonly, it consists two married people, usually a man and a woman, always from different lineage, not related by blood. So along with their offspring, usually living in a private or separate dwelling. This type of unit was the most common, as the nuclear family. It is believed to be the oldest type of family existent. Historically, the extended or the joint family was the norm before. Multiple generations would live under one, pool, using pool the resources. They share the child care and the elder care responsibilities. This arrangement provided for economic security and strong social networks, but often came with strict hierarchical rules and limited individual autonomy. But overall, for me, the family is usually a unit, and at the center of it, I always say, is a supportive unit. Over a period of time, we saw the shift from um, the extended family to the more nuclear family, and then we saw the shift from rural to industrial, and then urbanization. So it has really transitioned throughout the centuries, the family, and changed along through history, where it was more of a bigger pool with the extended family, and then it started to come down more to the nuclear family. I know we're seeing in Caribbean societies a lot of single parent families. So it has really transitioned throughout the years. And what I see is a continued transition, as the previous panelist said, we are seeing a real transition, and where we have biological families, we have mixed,
Blended families. Yeah.
yeah, blended families. Yeah. So it is really transitioning, and we actually are living this where we see it and see how it has transitioned in our society. But for me, it really stems from being a supportive unit. I will say that as being a supportive unit. Yeah,
Right. In a supportive unit and not necessarily biological. Yeah. So
correct.
thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for setting that context. And the definition I have here for social dysfunction, where it describes consequences intended or unintended that disrupts social harmony, reduce well-being, or hinder a system's ability to meet people's needs. You can feel free to expand on that as well. But what are some prominent social dysfunctions we see in Barbados society today? We'll start with you, Delson.
I mean, well, definitely. Thank you for that. Definitely, one of the key things that we are seeing, and again, that has a special place for me, is the rise or the proliferation of mental illnesses now. You have more persons becoming aware of behavioral disorders that serve as the foundation or the basis for much social dysfunction in their context. I think in times past, these conversations, albeit not necessarily or specifically about mental health, but these conversations were considered taboo. And so we had to, for not wanting to address uncomfortable topics, we had to somehow normalize social dysfunction. If we connect it to the family context, I'm sure many of us can relate to having that one relative that was a bit weird or a bit socially awkward, and persons not necessarily knowing the terminology would say things like, "Oh, that's my crazy aunt," or "That's my awkward uncle," or "He's strange," or "He is weird," and we use these terminologies and we just label people. But I am very glad that as again time has passed and our society has evolved, and these conversations and these forums are becoming more normalized, we are to speak more openly to social dysfunction, in particular, mental health. I would also go on to say that another real form of dysfunction that exists in our society is family dysfunction. Again, another one of those things that we were conditioned to be quiet about and to be silent about it. And many persons, now that we are normalizing these conversations, many persons, when they come together and they talk, they're able to say, "Me too," in a way where you can find relatability, you can find a safe space, or you can find that safety to be vulnerable and open about some of the adverse experiences that persons would have had. But many of our children, even today, and many of us who are now adults, we can attest to the fact that we have gone through many adverse childhood experiences that at one point in our lives we were taught to, or we were expected to remain silent about it. And that in itself became a dysfunction that had ripple effects in our society.
Right. So, but can you give, before I allow Ronald, could you give some of those family dysfunctions that you would have been hearing more prevalent
More
in this
prevalent now?
society?
Oh, sure. You would hear more persons now talking about abuse in its different forms. So there are many persons who would have experienced physical abuse, and to a large extent, physical abuse is the one that has been normalized, or we have been made to feel most comfortable with acknowledging physical abuse, because there's not necessarily that stigma or that label of shame attached to it, except if we were to perhaps go down into the realm of domestic abuse, so we go in, or intimate partner violence, where the physicality of it now becomes egregious. But I think that many persons who grew up being taught that this is just licks, or this is just when you behave badly, this is the response. Now we are understanding that many persons were not just beaten badly by parents, but they were actually abused. We now understand that many parents were just doing their best, or what they would have considered their best. And because patterns of dysfunction or experiences, adverse experiences were not readily spoken about. You have parents and grandparents who also had dysfunctions and adverse experiences in their childhood coming up. But because they were not allowed to, or they were never given the assistance to process those things, they now internalize that. And in some cases, when the behavior of children would, and I use this word lightly, trigger um, some feelings or some repressed emotions for those adults in them, they would now
Trauma.
lash out and turn on the children and pour out a beating that we were told to accept as licks, not realizing that this is physical abuse. So I mean, abuse in its different forms. We have the physical abuse, and of course we have more and more persons coming forward to talk about sexual abuse. You know, persons being molested, persons being violated sexually, and not just females or women or young girls, but we have more men and young men coming forward to acknowledge or to talk about being sexually violated.
Okay. Yes, thanks for sharing that. Ronald, do you have any more? You said, mentioned mental illness as a dysfunction, social dysfunction, as well as the family dysfunctions as well. Is there
Yeah.
any other type we
Um,
see prevalent in our society?
I think he touched on it a little bit, but I will speak a little bit more about it, and that is intergenerational trauma. Generational trauma. Um, so what we see is a lot of behavior passed down from one generation to the next generation. I'm sure we have seen or we have heard, and we see it a lot here in Barbados, where we see grandparents behave in a certain way, parents and the child behave in a certain way, especially when it comes to emotional regulation, aggression. We see grandparents use some of the worst profanity,
Yeah,
what we say cuss words.
yeah,
And we see the parents use the same kind of language. We see the younger generation, current generation, behaving the same way. I remember one time actually saw it in my own neighborhood, right? Where three generations all behave the same way. And we know persons in the Caribbean sometimes would say, oh, that's a generational curse. You know, that's a statement that people use. Yes, we can go with that. In psychology, we speak a lot about intergenerational trauma, where we see the behavior passed down from generation to generation. And I just want to say a little bit, historically, when we, when our foreparents were on the plantations across the Caribbean, the only way you could control the slave on the plantation was aggression. They called it
mm,
corporal punishment. Aggression.
yeah,
That's the only way you could control, basically control, mentally, physically, psychologically. Huh? So they used that aggression against the slaves.
mhm,
When we were no more slaves, when we were not any slaves anymore, we came off the plantation. We had individuals who never, the word counseling wasn't
yeah,
even used back then. So coming off the plantation, our great grandparents used the same thing as Mr. Charles said, licks like mad, licks like crazy. We called it punishment, but sometimes it was abuse. Throughout the generations, we saw parents use the most harshest punishment for their children. Not even necessarily, some lashes with the hand. Sometimes they're good for the coconut stick, the broomstick, the all kinds of sticks, and beat the children. And that is behavior passed down from generation to generation to generation, where we are at a position now where we're seeing it in our societies where a lot of our young people cannot process anger, um, emotions generally, and the main thing they go for is aggression. The main emotion that they tap into is aggression, and that is partially from generational trauma.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that a lot of the things that we're experiencing now, they are transgenerational things that we
Yes.
experience
Yeah.
historically, and
Yeah.
so but isn't it? Uh, I think it's important to highlight that we are now being able to talk about these things after so many
Yeah.
generations and to
Correct.
identify what the issues are. And so I think that is a plus for our society now, even though we
Definitely.
are experiencing a lot of the challenges, the dysfunction that we see, but people are able to name them and to deal with them. So that is a plus for us in
Yeah.
this
In this
time,
time, right?
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to welcome Jackie. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself just now. Is the but is the family the main factor in social dysfunction for individuals in society, or do other institutions play a part?
So good night again. You can hear
Yes,
me?
yes. Go ahead.
Good, wonderful. Right. So my name is Jakim Seeley. I'm a social worker at the Social Empowerment Agency, formerly Child Care Board. I've been working there for almost 29 years. So I would have managed the children's homes for over 25, 26 years and worked with hundreds of children that were what we would consider at risk, both boys and girls, over the years. But I really am enjoying this discussion. So as it relates to the family, I came in where Mr. Port was speaking on the whole intergenerational dimension of the family and the impact that it has on the family. And to answer the salient question that has been posed to us, is the family the root cause of all the challenges that we're experiencing today? I would have to ultimately say yes, based on God's intention for the family. You know, Deuteronomy chapter 6, the family was the first mechanism that God would have created to transmit his word to children and to grandchildren. And we hear about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So God has always been an intergenerational God. So we have Abraham, we have Isaac, we have Jacob, we have Joseph. And so the primary purpose for the family, as God originally intended it, is to transmit his word, his statutes, his values, his judgments, and his ordinances to the next generation. Because we know that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds of the mouth of God. And ultimately, all of the challenges that we have in Barbados today, ultimately they stem from persons disregarding the word of God. And that disregard mostly comes from families, whether the grandparent or great grandparent or mother or uncle or aunt, not transmitting the word of God to the grandson or to the granddaughter, and so forth and so on. But I just want to, I don't want to get ahead of myself, so I would just say that for now until I'm further guided by you, moderator.
Right. And so you're talking about transmitting, and the thing is that that is what is happening, but not the right things. So I think that is the challenge, is that what we is to be mindful of what we are transferring, what we are showcasing to our children. But just to get back to the question that I asked, whether the family is that mean, well, we know it's part and it plays a great role, but are there other factors, other institutions that is responsible for social dysfunction? Delson?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the solution of the question. I would say ultimately I agree that everything can be traced back to the family. We all come from families, and I like Mr. Pope's how he described it, where we have a man and a woman coming together to reproduce and to make children, and that becomes the form of the family. And so everybody has a mother and a father. Now, whether that mother and father, whether they are married, whether they were married, whether they are fit and prepared as parents to transmit the right things, whether there's a lack of fitness, and so you have a dependence on grandparents and so on, ultimately everything is traced back to the family. And so we can tell in many cases, we can just tell when you meet people, oh, this person comes from a background where perhaps there are very vivid, tangible family challenges. You can see it in their behavior, you can see it in their maladjustment, you can see it in the way they interact and socialize with other children and then becoming other teens and becoming other adults. But I do believe that after you step out of the family, there are other entities or organizations that you meet with that now play another part. Because I like to tell the story that where I am from in Trinidad, it's an area, and all of our islands, we have areas, right? And so it's an area that people would think if you come from here, you must be a certain way. Much like Jesus' experience where they said, can any good thing come from Nazareth, right? And so I came from a Nazareth type neighborhood in Trinidad, but through intentionality and through the influences that came to me, not just from my family, but from other spheres, positively, thankfully, they were able to help me or inform me to make choices that, I could navigate the society. So some of those other entities that may influence or may cause further dysfunction, we have school, right? Because I tell people sometimes you do your best, you train up your children in the way that they should go. And then when they step into those classrooms, you don't know who they're going to meet. You don't know who they're going to gravitate to as friends. And you don't know the backgrounds of those persons coming in. Because you could be coming from a Christocentric background and you're raising a family to fear the Lord. You're raising your children to understand how to be adjusted and what God expects of them and so on. But then they come up upon friends that come from different backgrounds and so bring a whole different set of influences. And then we have just being honest and balanced in the conversation. Sometimes it's not even the friends pulling them in. Sometimes it is a choice by an immature teen or a choice by a teen who's still developing and still discovering identity to want to abandon what they have learned to now adapt to what they think will make them win favor and win, social currency and so on. So we have the school. Then of course it's dependent on the community that you're in, because sometimes you don't even have to get to the schoolyard. It's right as you step out of your door. What's on the block? Who's on the block? Who's on the streets? And so the community is an important factor. The school is an important factor, and of course, the family. So I leave it open to my other panelists to bring forth
Yes.
some
So we
other
have as
influences.
other factors, we have the school, the educational system, and you mentioned in part community as
Community.
well.
Mhm.
Yes. Any addition, Ronald?
I just want to add, um, the shift from a collectivist society to a more individualistic society. If you look at Caribbean societies, 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, I was on alive, so again, according to the history books, but you will find that they were more a collectivist society where the community raised a child, the community was involved, there was more sharing, there was more communication in the community, more communication amongst the family, the extended family, to this shift now. So one of the problems they're seeing is this shift to a more North American individualistic society where it is all about I and me. I want to become a millionaire. They don't say, I want my family to be wealthy. They say, I want to become a millionaire. I want to be popular. They don't say, I want my family to be successful. It's very individualistic. And that is what I'm seeing a lot, and it becoming worse and worse. This selfish mindset that I am seeing is destroying the society, is destroying the family. It's a lot of I, and not we, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
I,
and
I just
I'm listening to you, but I'm thinking as what you spoke before in terms of how the challenges that exist then,
mhm,
and even though there was a community, those challenges still persist as it
yeah,
relates to the abuse and things like that. So I'm wondering if that is one of the reasons why people are now beginning, apart from the fact that people are becoming more insular generally, If
Yeah.
those are some of the reasons why people are keeping to themselves, because of now hearing all the stories of what happened at the neighbors and the uncles and so forth. So
Mhm.
as I'm listening, I'm thinking of what you had said before. So it could be that as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
It it,
Sorry.
it it
Continue.
it it creeps in. It creeps in slowly but surely, where you start to become a little bit more suspicious of your neighbors, a little bit more suspicious of your family, and that kind of breaks it up. So yes, you had the family which was and the community which was stronger, but then you start to get a little bit more suspicious. My neighbor does gossip my name. My grandmother does beat me too much. So you get the situation where you kind of move away from them, so you will have a lot of situations across the Caribbean now where your grandmother now lives in another country, in another parish, in another district. When I was growing up, my grandmother lived two gaps away. Now we move further away from the dangerous neighbors. We move further away from certain people that we don't like. And that kind of adds to the whole individualistic mindset. So it happens slowly, yeah? Yeah.
Yes. Jakim, I was thinking in terms of institutional, apart from the education, like for instance, work organizations. You have toxic work organizations and so forth. I don't know if you could shed some light as to how that also can impact um, social dysfunction. Or yes.
Well, yeah, well, for sure, because but I just cannot. What Mr. Pope has said is, as I was doing my research to this presentation, I am so in tune to what he is saying, um, as it relates to multi-generational family influences. And I'm currently a research student, but all the research is showing that healthy multi-generational family influences are already the solutions to our problems. All the research is showing that healthy multi-generational family influences, when you have grandparents and you have aunts and you have uncles, um, all of these individuals, these extended family members, and godfather and godmommy and great aunt and great uncle, all of these influencing positively on children. The research have consistently shown that neighborhoods and families with this kind of network and setup do way better than unhealthy multi-generational influences. I just wanted to say that. But as
Yeah.
it relates to institutions, I mean, I work in an institution that looks after the care and protection of children. And you can, as my brother would have said, that listen, um, you have children who become adults and they're enter the workspace and they connect with individuals from other families who have different values, and they're influenced by these individuals. I mean, you cannot, in social work, we call it the meso system. There's the micro, the meso, and the macro. But the meso system, which consists of community and workplaces, have a significant influence on an individual's development. Individuals grow across the life course, and there's something called in social work, there's something called transitions, where an individual can experience a major transition as a result of getting a new job. And that new job, he or she may connect with a person whose value system is way different from theirs. They may grow up in a church, but this person may grow up, some other place, and their value system is way different from theirs. And you'll find, most interestingly, that the person whose value system is anti-God more often than not influences the person whose value system is godly. So institutions definitely have an impact. But as we say in social work, there's the micro, the meso, and the macro, and the meso system definitely have an influence, because human beings, we develop across the life course, we develop across the lifespan. So development is not just from birth to 18. There's middle age development, and the human brain is constantly evolving. So you can have a child who is quote unquote well behaved up to age 18, but from the time that individual enters the workspace, the kind of influences having the work environment can significantly affect the kind of behavior that they present going forward. So I definitely am in agreement with that.
Mhm. Delson, you spoke a lot about mental health, and as that point is raised about the impact of the institution, um, do you see that a lot of mental health situations coming out of um, corporate organizations or people's
Oh, for
their
sure.
professional workplaces? Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know
for
if you can
sure.
speak to that.
For sure, for sure. Um, it's interesting that there are persons who would have survived adverse childhood experiences. They may have survived really difficult adolescent experiences at school, and they would consider themselves to be strong and resilient. But then they step into a workplace, and boy, oh boy, they're broken down in a way such as never before. And sometimes when you look at the workplace bullies, you see a thread that runs through, and I'm speaking generally here, right? But you see a thread that runs through, it tends to be this person who is masking insecurities and masking personal deficiencies, and they are now, operating with a bravado or wanting company because they're miserable in some way or they don't like their lives in some way. And so they may be intimidated by confidence, by somebody else's confidence or somebody else's competence, and so the workplace bullies, it's really interesting when you see how they can do a number on people. And there are persons now, many persons who seek out therapeutic interventions for workplace situations, workplace bullies, persons who they have worked really hard to get to where they get to where they have gotten. They are really proud of all of the things that they have achieved. But then you have this one person or this one group of persons within the system who have just colluded together to say, let's break this one down. And so that now causes a real mental and behavioral dysfunction for some of those persons. But I'm grateful that, we have counselors, we have therapists, we have psychologists, those who are able to lend their support because more and more I understand in this work that we do as a helping practitioner, more and more I understand when you see those instances of, let's say, the school shootings, the mass shootings. Sometimes people look at these people and say, wow, this person has to be really crazy to just get a machine gun and walk into a school and open fire. But when you trace back, through these persons' experiences, you realize that it would have been months, years of bullying and humiliation and breaking them down until a point where they've gotten to a breaking point and they're lashing back. I mean, in the world of work, thankfully, we don't have in the Caribbean many instances of persons coming and doing a mass shooting. But you have persons now rebelling or breaking down under dysfunction in a different way. Their quality of work is affected, their ability to communicate is affected, just their output on the whole, the way they show up in their relationships. You see them now experiencing dysfunction in different parts of their lives that are connected to what is happening at work. And then if we trace it back to school, boy oh boy, you see many teens who are maladjusted because again, they're coming in from homes or family dynamics where perhaps they're being spoken life into, they're being built up, they're being reinforced, all of the good things about them. But then they come into this dynamic where it's a survival of the fittest, where you have persons vying for social currency, vying for popularity, persons who are just disrupted or intimidated by that or by that which is different. And so if you come into those spaces and you are different, or you try your best to be authentic and to be an individual, there are many persons who are threatened by that. And their way to respond to that is to try to break it down, challenge it, make it non-existent.
Right. And so you can see that coming back. I mentioned that because all that is experienced in those other institutions, it's a cycle that goes back to the family. Because
Absolutely.
once you experience that, you can take that home to your
Yeah,
family and the family feel the brunt of what you're experiencing and
absolutely.
then pass and it becomes a cycle
Yeah.
forward. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Anyone else would like to add?
I want to just add something that Jacqueline said and Elison said, um, and that is the institutions. So We have individuals who will be in a family, but when you move to a work environment where you have peers that are influential. So, Mr. Charles, talk a little bit about the work, your work colleagues who will try to pull you down. There are actually work colleagues who are very influential. So they pull you away from your family. You know how many rum shops I drive by and I see a whole bunch of men that have not got home as yet, drinking rum at the rum shop. They ain't get home yet, you know. They ain't get home yet. So you have strong influences at work and in social groups as well that pull you away from your family. I always say this, you can quote me on this. One of the reasons why we have so many fellas linemen on the block is because these gang members pull them away from their families. They pull them with all this influence. It could be drugs, it could be clothes, it could be money, it could be fun and partying. It could be anything, but they pull them with this influence. So you will have a family who maybe Seventh-day Adventists, and you're working in a new working environment, and you have work colleagues who say, there's a fete Saturday, there's a party Sunday, there's this show, there's that show. Come, let's hang out. Come, let me drink after work. There's nothing wrong with, positive, work colleagues that you can hang out with after work and you have fun and have jokes. But you see a lot of times that the influential workmates will pull you away from your family. And I'm seeing it a lot there. The block, yes, the block is pulling our boys away from their families to Lime on the block. So this influence I'm
Yes.
seeing.
A very perceptive point. And just to add to that, I was thinking about in terms of the organization, the workplace, there's also what society has embraced as the hustle culture. That while it is important for hard work to be rewarded when employees are expected to do their regular 9 to 5, but then they're also expected to be available on weekends and also taking them away from their family and leaving them without a chance to enhance their own recreational rather life, whether it's because of a better salary, promotion, or some form of recognition that is dangled in front of them. And so, with these issues, how should family members respond to these pressures? How can family members respond to these pressures that are outside that could become cyclical in the family? Uh, with Jackie,
Yeah.
we can start with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, how can family members respond to these pressures? Now, and I know our psychologists and our counselor will be aware of this. There are protective factors and the adverse childhood experience and the protective childhood experiences. And a lot of research have shown that once a child or family has these protective components, it creates a buffer. And it isn't a magic pill, but it creates a buffer where the family is able to overcome the challenges of life. In life, we will have challenges. And that is why I am a stickler for the multi-generational influences. Now, family life in Barbados is really at an all-time low. Where I sit and where I work, some families are going through some very, very difficult situations. We all know the story with the young men. A lot of young men are being killed. A lot of fatherless homes. So we have a lot of children who don't have any fathers. You have a child who father has been killed through gun violence. What can a family member do in this particular? It's a real scenario. In this particular scenario, what a family member can do is you have a grandmother or a grandfather or a great aunt or a great uncle or a cousin who comes alongside this young man or this young woman and provides the social support. Now, families exist to provide social support. And we find that a lot of families in Barbados are not providing the kind of social support for their family members, again, because of the individualism and the lack of collective and community, they're not providing the kind of social support. So I think that one thing that family members can do, and when I say family members, I'm referring not just to what we would call the nuclear, but in terms of the network of the family, is to be intentional in providing the social support for your family members when these difficult times come. Don't run away from them. Be there, be available, be present, be live and direct to assist and to intervene with your family members when they are going through these difficulties. So I would say, first off the bat for me will be family members providing social support for their loved ones when they are going through their difficult challenges. So social support will be it for me.
Social support. Very perceptive. Ronald, how can family members buffer themselves from these pressures that are from the outside?
Yeah, my response is very similar, and that is to involve the professional agencies and the professionals. Families, as Mr. Charles said at the beginning, many families across the Caribbean still have a little hiccup about mental health and counselors and psychologists. So when you have families that are dysfunctional, there's nothing wrong in seeking that support as far as counseling interventions, mentorship for the boys, um, social support agencies. There's nothing wrong in seeking these things. Don't wait until the family's absolutely broken up, then to want to seek these things. So you have to be more proactive rather than reactive. And I always feel as though, families can seek family counseling. Um, they can get assistance from social support agencies. So my thing is, don't wait till late. Seek that intervention, seek that professional help early. Everything you hear the word mental health, it does not mean bipolar and schizophrenia. It actually means that families that are dysfunctional can have that intervention as far as emotional support, emotional regulation, communication skills. These are things that can be taught in counseling, family counseling, communication skills, emotional regulation, conflict resolution. So it is always good to seek professional help.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very insightful. What about Delson? Do you have anything to add
Oh, yeah, definitely.
there?
I would appeal to our families to return to the basics. I'm fully aware that the backdrop of our conversation and all that we do here at Family Fest is, Christian, and it is God oriented as well. And so it would be remiss of me to talk or to not talk about going back to the basics, going back to understanding what God's intentions for the family are, understanding the value of communal worship, understanding the value of accessing the space or that built-in forum in the family to be a safe space where you can find identity, you can find reassurance, you can come back to your sense of self and that sense of community. It would be remiss of us to not mention that. I also see too that sometimes when you go back to the basics, for let's say for example something such as financial literacy, there are many homes and many families that are experiencing ripples of dysfunction because of financial illiteracy. And so you recognize that this financial instability, this economic instability, has caused persons to make some choices and some decisions or even to pursue some lifestyles just because there has been an intergenerational or multi-generational lack of financial literacy, a lack of understanding when it comes to stewardship, when it comes to entrepreneurship and so on, that because of that, there are persons that have chosen illicit lifestyles, passed that down to other generations, and so that now has become the norm. Whereas if you were, to Ronald's point, if you were engaging the work or the intervention of professionals, and thankfully, not all of these things now have to have a cost attached to it. I'm thankful that we live in a time now where the University of YouTube exists. And so there's almost anything that you can go onto YouTube and simply say, financial literacy 101. Teach me how to handle money. Teach me how to get out of debt. What is a new
Create a budget.
way that we can
Mhm.
implement for my family to get out of debt? And while one size doesn't fit all, there are resources available, free resources available that we can access to help us get out of those situations that can seem hopeless or feel helpless. But once we were to avail ourselves of these resources and the intervention of counselors and helping practitioners, social workers, and so on, if we were to rid ourselves of the shame and we were to just accept what is happening with us, understanding that we don't have to stay this way, that we can make choices and we can be different, I think we would see a lot of changes. The story goes out of many adults who have come from adverse childhood backgrounds. And they told themselves, I am now an agent of my own free will. I am able to choose differently. I don't have to become like those who raised me. I don't have to assimilate to the environment that I came from. I can make different choices. And so I want us to remember our agency as individuals because each family is made up of individuals. Each each home, each society, each classroom, each workplace, it's made up of individuals. And when we remember our agency and our ability to choose, to change our minds and to do differently, we can definitely start to see some positive changes in our society.
Mhm. Positive trajectory. Very well. So although we have established that, other social institutions can have an impact on individual or social behaviors, many of which we have the opportunity to control, or some of them we cannot control them directly as parents and guardians. So, but still, we have the responsibility to ensure that we do our part to impart those godly or moral values. Um, and as you mentioned, to seek out all the other assistance that you can get. And yes, we have that responsibility to get that healing and the education and good parenting and relationships so that we can break the negative cycles and promote a healthier family environment. But as we're winding down, getting ready to close, I just want to find out what are some ways that I know we've mentioned a lot, but we just some additional ways that we can encourage families to overcome negative family environments and strengthen their family relationships. Because I know persons might be looking, um, apart from those that you've already mentioned, that, I'm living in a negative family environment. What are some things that I can do? Yeah.
I
Ronald?
just,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been waiting to say this ever since. Um, and Mr. Charles touched on it, Mr. Seeley touched on it, but the we have to go back to God at the center of the family. Currently, a lot of families are shaky, and we know that God, as a solid foundation, keeps the family together. So that's one, you know, having that strong bond with God keeps the family together. No doubt. The second one I want to talk about is education. Um, we could break a lot of these generational issues and family dysfunction if we become, as a society, more educated on topics. For instance, finding out what um, adverse childhood um, is I can't remember ACE now. Adverse childhood
Adverse childhood
experiences.
experiences.
Yes, ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. Finding out a little bit more about that. Trauma. How can these things impact the individual, impact the family? And I would love if Barbadians and our Caribbean neighbors, became more educated on topics of family dysfunction, um, the move from the extended family um, due to industrialization, due to urbanization, modernization. Now we have technology. I know many of us would see a situation where four family members sitting at a table. I have seen this. Four family members sitting at a table and each one on their phone. So technology has caused the family to separate as well. So I want persons to become more educated on these things. How did we get here? And that helps a lot. That can break generational trauma issues. It could really empower families, empower societies if we become more educated rather than continue on the we call it the mouse wheel, just going wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong until disaster strikes. So become more educated and God at the center of the family.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
Ja- Jackie, yes.
Yes, please. I would just want to say, and following on for what my brother would have said, Brother Pope, the whole influence of the church as an agency of change and as an institution. We are the light of the world. We are the salt of the earth. We are the only institution that has been given divine authority and power to impact change within our communities. By this will all men know that you are my disciples when you have love one for another. And in the early church, a lot of the unsaved were brought to Christ as a result of the relationships they saw among the Christians in the first century. So the influence of the church, I mean, I would have worked, as I said, in children's homes for a number of years, and you would hardly see churches come into these, in all honesty, they will come around Christmas and around Easter time. But generally speaking, you will hardly find a church, whether it's Saturday worship or Sunday worship. So the church as an agency of change needs to be more intentional. And we thank God for the wonderful work that Family Fest is doing. But we need more of this. We need to saturate the nation and our communities with godly influences, because we are light and we are salt. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. So the influence, the positive influence of the church within the neighborhood, within the family, within the institutions, I think once we engage with our institutions positively and understanding the spiritual warfare dimension that's going on, we can really make a positive change. So I would say the more active and intimate involvement of the local church.
Right. And parents and guardians choosing to also go to those institutions. Yeah, that is how the help can also come about. Yes. Anyone else? Just before we
Oh,
close.
definitely.
Yes.
I would love to remind us of the power of individual agency. I'd like to remind us of the power of of us as individuals and how each one can reach one and each one could teach one. It's well documented throughout the Word of God where you've had the experiences of one person connecting with another person, or even Jesus himself having isolated yet impactful experiences with people on a one-to-one level, and those persons going away from that interaction totally transformed. And so it's well spoken of, where people say somewhere somebody remember that on their lowest day, in their worst moment, you were kind to them. They remember that person who was kind to them. And so people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's something that I remind myself of all the time, that with all of the agencies and all of the influence of the church and the home and the school and all of these things, I'm reminded that if I can first be accountable to God as an individual, and I can remember how I am called to treat with people, that somewhere somebody experiencing real life, real time dysfunction, that because of my kindness, my intentional, authentic, compassionate interaction with them, remembering that they are a human being, seeing beyond their behavioral manifestations, and just being concerned and being interested in what's happening in their lives, that form of kindness, that act of kindness could save a life and have a huge ripple effect to shift a family's paradigm when it comes to a system of dysfunction. So I want to encourage all of us to be kind, moral, intentional, authentic, compassionate human beings. And when we remember that somewhere one act of kindness can shift a whole family's experience, I think we will be more impactful just as a society because each one is reaching one and each one is teaching one.
Yes, very well said to all of you. So I'm seeing here, be a light. Just know that you individually can also help change that narrative that we're seeing in our society today. And have we answered the question? Yes, I believe that we can say that the family, it comes back to the family, although there are other factors. It always comes back to the family and our responsibility, as many of you have said, to take that initiative to do what we have to do. So, families, we do have a lot of work in helping to change our society and see a decrease in social dysfunction. I'd like to thank each of you once again for your valuable and insightful contributions to this topic. Thank you, Delson Charles, Jackie Seeley, and Ronald Pope. Thank you very much. Ensure that you tune in on Thursday as we close off our family week by celebrating the family by hearing their success stories. So ensure you tune in then at 7 p.m. to be encouraged. And thanks to each of the viewers for joining us. And don't forget to share this valuable discussion with a a friend or family member who may very well need it. I am Angelina Cotton. Have a pleasant evening, all.
Thank you.
This July, Family Fest Barbados invites you to be part of something powerful. It is our month of activities in July 2026 under the theme, The Purpose of Family. Across 4 dynamic weeks, we will focus on the heart of our nation, men, women, children, and the family.
Join us for 12 live online discussions, exploring real issues, real stories, and real solutions for stronger families and a stronger Barbados. Men's Week runs July 5th to 9th.
Women's Week runs July 12th to 16th. Children's Week runs July 19th to 23rd. And Family Week runs July 26th to 30th. Stream with us live on Sundays at 5:30 p.m. and Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Then, join us for our 7th anniversary fundraising gala, Saturday, September 5th, 2026 at 7 p.m. at the Hilton Barbados Resort.
Enjoy a 3-course meal, entertainment, door prizes, and more. Tickets are $250 per person. Your support helps us to save families. Family Fest Barbados. Help, hope, healing, happiness.
For tickets and information, call 428-9611, 420-5717, or 832-5241. Saving families through education.
We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness. With God on our side, we're marching strong, looking out for hurting children all around, and helping the parents carry on. Standing united, we'll overcome. We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing